So we've moved our mailbox configuration to the user's home directory. Now let's show you how to implement maildir style directories for mailbox storage. With maildir style directories, mail is routed to the user's home directory into a subdirectory, and that subdirectory contains one file per email with an additional subdirectory structure that you'll see shortly. The advantage again is of course that maildir style storage is superior to mbox with respect to locking as well as speed, performance, and so on. In order to do so, we'll simply make changes to the etc postfix main.cf configuration file. So let's modify main.cf. We're going to search for the same directive that we modified, the home_mailbox directive. And as you can see, it's still routing to a file called mailbox in the user's home directory. Let's comment this directive and uncomment the maildir directive, the separate directive. This will create a subdirectory in each user's home directory called maildir. Beneath it will be a structure that will contain the messages. Now, maildir is a standard that was implemented with Qmail, and it's recognized and supported by many mail user agents, including Squirrel Mail, Mutt, and others. So as a result, you don't have to worry about being able to read messages when postfix spools those messages to the maildir or maildir format. Let's save the main.cf file, and in a separate window, shell number 2, where we're currently logged in as user Linux CBT SUSE1, we'll lsltr so that you can see the current directory structure. There's a file called mbox, which is where mutt by default will move messages to if you specify so when exiting mutt. There's the mailbox file where postfix delivers messages, and we've yet to see the subdirectory maildir because we haven't reloaded postfix and spooled any messages in. Let's restart postfix, and we'll launch mutt. We'll compose a message, send it to Linux CBT SUSE1, testing mail, and let's just specify it in the proper case or the common case, maildir style messaging. We'll send it, and this message has been delivered. Now in shell number 2, we'll relist the subdirectory, the user's home directory, and as you can see, there's a newly created subdirectory called maildir. Let's navigate into maildir. This is where, of course, postfix has delivered the new message. You'll find 3 subdirectories that are created by the postfix MTA, called current, or short for current, new, and temporary. When messages are being spooled in, they're typically copied into the temp subdirectory before actually placing them into the final destination. There's the current subdirectory, and then there's also the new subdirectory. The new subdirectory is where you're going to find messages that have been unread. New messages, of course. By default, postfix changes the ownership on the new mail messages to reflect the owner of the message or the recipient's mailbox. In this case, the owner is Linux CBT SUSE1, and the message is read-writable by the owner, Linux CBT SUSE1, and optionally by the user root. Here is the nomenclature that's used, or the template that's used, the nomenclature naming system that's used for naming files that are placed into a maildir structure. What precedes the file name is a unique identifier which corresponds to the number of seconds since 1970, aka the Unix epoch. So maildir format prefixes its file names, or includes as a part of its file name the prefix, the first section, which corresponds to the number of seconds since 1970. You can reference that value, which is no longer current since it's a moving target, using date plus %s. And date plus %s will show a similar value that is measured in the number of seconds since 1970, which is over a billion, shortly over a billion. Great, so we have that, but this may not be enough to uniquely identify a message, since many messages can be processed in parallel and could be processed within a second. So potentially postfix may process multiple messages within a given second. So it's not enough to name a file with a unique identifier of the Unix epoch or number of seconds since 1970. So postfix also appends another portion to the file to the name of the file that's stored in the file system, and this portion is certainly unique. So the combination of both the number of seconds since the Unix epoch and postfix's label, followed by the owner of the message, makes the message name unique. Now this file is a regular mail file. It's an ASCII text file. So executing file against, and we'll execute file against new, and the lone file that's in new will return that it's an SMTP mail text file, and it's ASCII text. Let's generate a new message before actually altering Linux CBT SUSE 1's MUT configuration to reflect maildir style messages. In shell number 1, we'll launch the mail user agent again, and we'll compose a new message and send it to the same user, Linux CBT SUSE 1. Test 2 of maildir style storage. We'll send it, and that message also has been spooled. Let's navigate into new, and let's lsltr, and there are two messages. Now again, a date plus %s will show the number of seconds that have elapsed since 1970, January 1st, 1970, when the message that was recently spooled in, the one with the prefix of 111.014, the one that I'm actually currently highlighting, it was 20 seconds after. When we executed date plus %s, it was 32 seconds after. But nonetheless, both messages have individual unique IDs, both in the number of seconds since the Unix epoch, as well as the unique ID that's appended by postfix, which is a part of the qmail maildir specification. So qmail was the first MTA designed to use this new structure. Again, files are stored, one file or messages are stored per file, one file per message, one message per file. And the suffix is normally the owner of the mailbox, or normally labeled after the owner of the mailbox. Having said that, we now need to alter our configuration to be able to handle this new maildir style of messaging. In order to do so, simply set grep-i to see the current variables that are actually stored for mail. The current variable points to the new location, the previously rerouted location of the mailbox entries, which is in the user's home directory. However, in order to support the new structure, which is the maildir structure, we need to define a variable that MUT supports called maildir. In fact, if you execute a man on MUT and press space and go down, you'll see the environment variables that MUT relies upon, including mail and as well as maildir. We should specify maildir, and for simplicity, we should unset mail. So we're going to set maildir and unset mail. Maildir points directly to the directory which contains the maildir messages. So let's take a look at that. Let's unset mail. Again, if we rerun set with a grep of mail, you'll see that mail has been unset. And now let's set by using the export command. We can use set, but then we'll need to execute export shortly thereafter. So let's simply execute export, which will set the variable and export it in one step. So we'll export maildir and make it equivalent to the user's home directory, which can be accessed using the tilde, followed by the directory, which is called maildir. Now this variable maildir will need to be specified in the system-wide configuration files so that upon subsequent logins for the user Linux CBT SUSE 1 and other users on the system, the variable is set. So we'll need to unset mail and then set maildir if this is the new structure that we'll use for routing messages. This is certainly a superior way of storing mail messages. Let's rerun the set grep for mail, and you'll see that we now have the variable set for maildir. Now we should be able to execute mail, or our mail user agent, which is MUT, and there you see the new message. Testing maildir, that was the earlier message. We'll quit it, we'll delete, and here's test number 2 of maildir style storage. So messages are being routed properly. We'll purge both messages, they're gone. Let's compose and send a new message to Linux CBT SUSE1. Subject testing maildir, style mailbox storage, and the body will simply say this message will be copied to the user Dean's maildir subdirectory. We'll also say postfix handles the creation of the ~/maildir subdirectory. So it creates it for us if it doesn't exist. Let's CC the user Dean. Notice by default the mail user agent appends the suffix of the fully qualified domain name of the host, and the message has been sent. Now in shell number 3, what we'll do is we'll SSH in, but what we should do is make a system-wide change before setting, or rather than setting the variables manually on a per user basis. So simply navigate into etc, modify the bash.bashrc file, and towards the end where we previously set the mail command, what we can do here is unset it. In fact, let's leave the export just in case we decide to revert to this configuration. So let's unset mail and then export maildir. Again, you can set both variables. They are different shell variables, but as to not confuse the mail user agent mutt, we should simply unset the unnecessary variable because it'll use both. And you don't want any confusion as to where you're picking up your messages. We'll export maildir and we'll set it equivalent to the user's home directory, which is expanded because of tilde expansion, which is provided for us by the bash shell, followed by maildir. This will make the changes applicable to all users on the system. So in shell number 3, what we want to do now is SSH into the local system as Dean. We could SU, but it's always cleaner if we get our own console with our own variables. So SSH as Dean into the local host. We'll authenticate, which of course is a requirement. And then let's execute set grep with the I option. Notice I use the I option quite frequently so that we can ignore, or so that grep ignores the case or performs a case insensitive search. Let's grep for mail. And now you see we don't have a mail variable set, but we do have a maildir variable set, which is what we want. Now let's see if there is indeed in our home directory a subdirectory called maildir. Let's sort by the most recently created items being displayed at the bottom. And as you can see, there's a subdirectory called maildir. Postfix supports it, and so do many of the mail retrieval applications such as Courier and so on that are used for accessing mail via standard protocols such as IMAP and POP. Now in the maildir subdirectory is a familiar structure including the temp workspace, which the MTA uses for spooling messages, as well as mail user agents when you compose and send messages, the new subdirectory, which contains new messages which have not been read, and as you can see, the number of seconds, a unique identifier, and the owner of this particular box. Now let's take a look, or the server I should say, where the message was destined, not the owner. So previously when we looked at the message for the user Linux CBT SUSE1, this is really for the server that it was destined to, not the user. The owner is indicated by the permissions on the file. So in shell number 3, let's launch mutt. And there's the new message, testing maildir style mailbox storage. We're picking up our messages from the proper place. Now we can read this message, and we can quit. Now when we quit the mail user agent mutt, it'll attempt to move the messages into mbox format style. This feature can be turned off using the etc muttrc configuration file on a global basis or on a per user basis. That's entirely up to you. What we're interested in here is simply the delivery to the new maildir style of directory mail storage. So great, messages are being routed exactly how we expect them to be. There's also the copy that was sent to the user Linux CBT SUSE1. We'll delete it, we'll quit, and now you understand how to set up maildir. But again, these changes have occurred globally, so the prior reroute that we did of the mbox to the user's home directory no longer applies because postfix will reroute messages as indicated by running a postconf-n. Postconf will reroute messages into the home directory of the user, and it's going to use the maildir because the home_mailbox directive tells it to do so. Great. So now you understand how the structure works, and we've told you a little bit about it being a superior way of storing messages. So if you have a Unix or Linux-based system set up and you're running postfix, then consider using maildir versus mbox, especially if you're in an environment where you're accessing your mail directories across an NFS connection, which is certainly prone to locking issues. Next, we're going to take a look at mail retrieval, which is something we've yet to look at because we've been concerned primarily with the MTA portion of the mail process, which is the delivery of mail from one box to another, one site to another, one domain to another. We're going to actually take a look at one of the more popular retrieval packages. We'll show you how it works using the IMAP and POP3 protocols. We'll also show you how to integrate it with maildir storage locations, and you'll see how to retrieve those messages from a third-party client.